Okay, oh good. Okay. John Humbert was, I don't want to steal any of your good opening lines here, but John Humbert was one of Norvel's partners in crime way back when, all the way at Lewis and Clark High School in 19... And just a few things. Come on up, John. Has come up from California to spend time with us. Come on, John.
This is a wonderful opportunity. As Bert says, I'm from California. I've heard about all of you over the years, and it's nice to put faces and really meet such a wonderful group of people.
Trying to get you closer.
You're trying to.
This is your audition for radio.
First of all, I want to say, Norvel, I came prepared. I wouldn't want to disappoint Norvel. Well, as Bert says, I first met Norvel at Lewis and Clark High School in our junior year. That was 1958. In those days, we were all teenagers, but in my interactions with Norvel, he was then the most thoughtful, caring person in the department. And his range of interests were so vast that it was always a pleasure to be with him because he was interested in everything. We've heard about the rockets, we've heard about the telescopes. He was into hi-fi and stereo equipment and into photography. There are a couple stories about high school I could tell. All minor pranks, nothing major. But unfortunately, he went to college in one direction, I went to college in another direction. We ended up in different cities afterwards, and so our friendship was largely via telephone. We would get together usually every summer, and he was always kind enough to arrange a little photography outing for us. So that was our bonding time. And I have to say, our mutual interest in photography was really the glue that kept our relationship together. And I have to say, he also got me interested in camera collecting, which, of course, he took to the extreme. I find it. Just recently, I've kept that habit. People have talked about Norvel's serious health problems, and indeed, he lost a couple of decades of real productivity with all the health problems he had. And in our conversations, he would ventilate about that and express his frustrations. But at the same time, he was the giving person that would always have the time, the patience, and the wisdom to help me through my crises while he was suffering his. Certainly he was quirky, and that always brought a new dimension to all of our conversations. He always had an interesting point of view on everything. So through these decades, over 50 years, our friendship really deepened. And I have to say, and it's probably a thought that a lot of you share, he was certainly a close family member. And at least I considered him as a brother. And it was always a great pleasure and blessing to have such a gentleman, a talented person to be part of my life. He was a big influence on everything that I did. Then we come to his photography. He, as we all know, was a very serious photographer, very high standards. Everything he did was just extremely high quality. I always was sort of envious of that because I never made it past the snap shooters. But the thing that always struck me was that he was very reluctant to accept praise about his work. He was his own worst critic. And it seemed for many years that he would do these shows and exhibits and get the publicity, but he was never quite comfortable with it. And then along came the Telford project, and he struggled with that for about 8 years, as we all know. And there were times he would tell me that he was ready to give up on it because he didn't think he would finish. And then one day he told me that his friends, Zan and Kathy and others, were stepping up to make sure it did happen. And that was a real changing point, at least that I could see, from for his attitude toward the project. And the thing that was so interesting about the Telford exhibit was that when my wife and I came up for that, and he was so excited. And I think it was the first time that I had ever seen him comfortable and satisfied with the work. But at the same time, he was very quick to say, well, none of this would have happened without his friends. So he always spoke about that project as a joint project. He never thought of himself as the sole producer of that. And I think it was because of that collaborative effort that he really became finally comfortable in accepting with that project. So I have to say, the lasting memory I have of Norvel is that day, having him walk me through that exhibit, and how terribly excited he was. It's too bad that was cut short, because he was talking about a lot of other projects that he had in mind, and that while the Telford project, was very successful, the zenith of his photography, you wonder how many other steps up that ladder, we're waiting for. Okay, so about high school. In high school, well, let me say, I was not part of the so-called Rocket Club. I think that ended in the early part of '58, and I met him later in the year. So by then, that was sort of out of his mind. And I didn't learn until about 20 years later, in a conversation that he and I had, that not only did he put all this energy into understand how to build these rockets and all the research and homework that went into it, but as thoughtful as we know Norvel to be, he did the research to find out if there were any legal issues with launching. And so he told the story that he had written letters to the state government, the county government, the city government, to determine if there were in fact any ordinances prohibiting rocket launching. And I'm not sure how many letters he got back, but I know he received a letter from the sheriff. And the sheriff said, we don't have any prohibition. And so you'll see on the pool table some of the articles about the rocket launching, and the fact that shortly after he got the letter from the sheriff, the city did pass an ordinance. So by the time I met him, the situation sort of quietly faded out of the discussion. We never really talked much about the rocket launching. But at the time that he told me this story, I was the father of a teenager. And it just struck me as to how many teenagers would take that step. Well, that's normal. So that's my Norvel story.
Great. Thank you.